This is Keith McDaniel, and today's October the 3rd, 2024, and I am at the production studio here at Roane County High School, and I'm talking to our county executive, Wade Creswell. Wade, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Keith. Great to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
Sure. Now, I always start at the beginning. So tell me where you were born and raised, something about your family.
Sure, absolutely. So I was actually born in Creswell in 1974, so I just turned 50 years old. But my mom and dad were from Kingston. Mm-hmm. Both of my grandfathers were World War II naval veterans. One was from Birmingham. My mom's dad was from Birmingham, Alabama. My dad's dad was from Jefferson County. Mm-hmm. And they both moved here to work in Oak Ridge. And so after moving to Oak Ridge and starting a family, they both relocated to Kingston when their families were still growing. Yeah. And raised, my mom and dad, aunts and uncles, all here. They all came right through here. And my mom and dad settled here, raised me and my sister. So I was born in Creswell, and we were living there for a few years, but moved back to Kingston when I was 5. Okay. So the generations run about 3 generations deep, and I was born somewhere else, but started here before we moved here before I started school.
So why did your family move here?
So you mean grandfathers?
Yeah.
To work in Oak Ridge.
To work in Oak Ridge.
So my mom's dad, Ross Jones, he led the fabrication shop at X10
mm-hmm.
Graphite Reactor. Well, not at Graphite, but ORNL, what became ORNL.
Sure.
And then my dad's dad, Harris Creswell, he did gas spectrometry at K25.
Oh, okay.
So, and their stories on how they got there are remarkable. But they both came here after the war to work here. Yeah. So that's what brought our families here to settle in Kingston, and mm-hmm. we've never left.
All right, I'm going to adjust this just a little bit. There we go. All right, well, good. So where did you go to school? Where did you go to elementary school?
So from your studio, if you go straight out this hall, there's a little brick building at the end of the hallway. And that was in Ms. Perkins' class. Okay. In kindergarten. Uh-huh. And then, of course, went to elementary school right here in this building when it was the elementary school. Yeah. I went to Cherokee and then Roane County High School, which at the time was about 200 students larger, but was just in the building towards the river from here.
Just in what we call the A building.
In the A building.
This is the B building.
That was the whole high school. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it was probably 850 students.
Probably so,
like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And what year did you graduate?
1992.
Okay. So tell me about school. Who are some of the teachers or people that maybe impacted or influenced you as you were going through school?
All the way coming up through. I had an idyllic childhood. My experience in school and in my neighborhood, it was just, dream. Playing with whatever sport was in season.
Where did you grow up?
So we grew up on the other side of West Shore. Okay. Across the river. Sure. And down in a holler as you pass West Shores there. And that's where my mom and dad still live today. Oh, okay. But growing up, all my teachers, I had a great relationship with all my teachers. Ms. Hines, Mary Hines, who was my first grade teacher, still stay in social media contact with today. And then coming up through Ms. Cotts, Ms. Blevins. And then you get into Cherokee and you start switching classes. But, we just lost Coach Snow, who was such a great influence on me. He was my PE teacher, my football coach. Mm-hmm. Such a good man. But, coming up even through high school, so many good teachers. Miss Lanham, Mr. Suits, Miss Tilley, Ms. Wassam. I could go on and on. I hate to single anybody out. Of course, Coach King was my football coach. He and I still remain very close to this day. I just had such an incredible experience growing up in Kingston.
Now, I'm sure you played sports when you were growing up, too. What did you start? At what age did you start? I was
always playing something, no matter what it was. We all did. That's what we did. And it wasn't all the stuff to do now, you played ball. Yeah. So, playing Little League all the way up through, first organized ball was at Cherokee, playing football. Mm-hmm. and then just kept that through high school. So I played football through high school.
What position did you play?
Quarterback.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we had a big team. We had about 100 of us, and I wasn't very good. So I got beat out by a couple of buddies, who got a lot more playing time than I did.
Yeah.
But we were a really good football team at the time. Deep. We had probably over 100 players at the time. Yeah.
Wow.
It was some good times for Kingston football.
Now, growing up in Kingston, small town culture.
Right.
Everybody knows everybody. Did you ever get in trouble?
Not a whole lot. I did. The one time I kind of got in trouble, and I deserved it. It was an in-service day on a Friday.
Uh-huh.
My sister was a cheerleader. I was a senior.
Uh-huh.
And my sister and her cheerleader buddies had rolled a bunch of my friends' houses, which was a thing then.
Yeah, sure.
Rolled houses with toilet paper.
Yeah.
And my buddies that got rolled vowed revenge.
Uh-huh.
And I set out to catch them. So we set out all kinds of booby traps. And anyway, I'm trying to make this long story short.
Uh-huh.
Well, I did catch them, but we had to take my girlfriend home at the time. Came back, and they were rolling my yard.
Uh-huh.
I ended up chasing them and wrecking.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what I was going to do if I caught them. They were my friends, But totaled my truck. And my mom, I had to go wake my mom up. My dad was out of town.
Uh-huh.
He comes back home the next day, kicks my door open, tells me to come clean it up. I had a broken nose. And it totaled my truck.
Yeah.
So I never got in trouble in school, but that was
Right.
probably the most deserved time I ever really got in trouble at home. And, I got everything I deserved, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's being a teenager, I guess.
Yeah, being a stupid teenager.
You're making bad decisions. One of my favorite sayings is, there's a reason for everything, and sometimes the reason is you're stupid and make bad decisions.
That guy was looking out for me. I'm telling you, that could have ended really badly right then. And but for the grace of God, am I standing here? And yeah, He looks out for us when we make some terrible mistakes. Sometimes.
That is true. So you played football in high school. What did you do when you graduated? Where did you go to school?
So mom and dad both worked at Roane State.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was going to Roane State. That was not an option. My dad, and I had a scholarship academically to go to Roane State.
Yeah.
And Dad said that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. And then after that, I had freedom to go wherever I wanted to. I was pre-med at the time. I wanted to be a doctor.
Uh-huh.
And my doctor, who was our team doctor here, was Rodney McMillan.
Uh-huh.
I was an orderly at Harriman Hospital at the time, and he and Dr. Denton talked me out of it. After I had gone through Roane State, I was going to go to ETSU and be and major in pre-med, in biology, and finish pre-med to go into medical school. And they both said, "Wade, don't do it. We never get to see our kids. We work 100 hours a week. Don't go this path."
Really?
Yes. So I had another friend who was at ETSU at the time going through nursing school to go to anesthesia school.
Yeah.
And he did that. His name's Paul McDaniel. He actually is a CRNA and has been for a long time. He may be close to retirement now. But so I followed that path. That's what I chose. I changed my major to nursing at ETSU. And the plan was to go straight to anesthesia school as soon as I could.
Yeah.
After graduation.
Okay. So did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I came home and worked at Roane Medical Center. And
Okay.
so, I had so many nurses there that raised me.
Yeah.
And I started working in ICU, working in emergency room, which I was kind of an adrenaline junkie, and I loved that. But I ended up meeting my wife, and life happened. Never went back to grad school for medical purposes. I didn't go to grad school until much later. Went to UT to get my MBA.
Now, did you finish nursing school?
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
I'm still an RN to this day.
Is that right?
Keep my license.
Okay.
Haven't done it in 21 years.
Right.
But professionally, but I still keep my license just in case.
I imagine another one of the reasons that maybe those two doctors talk you out of it was that was about the time that everything started changing as far as insurance and on all those regulations that were coming in. And
it's a different planet now in healthcare than it was then.
Oh, yeah.
And I came in on the very tail end of a totally different era. And now it's much more corporate, much more regulated and controlled, and really a little less enjoyable for those who get to practice in healthcare now.
Oh, sure. I'm sure.
So yeah, that all played a role. And they were friends of mine. They didn't tell me, they were concerned for me.
Yeah, sure.
And my life has taken twists and turns I never could have predicted. But I mean, had they not talked me out of it, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And I really feel like I'm living out my purpose right now.
Right. So when you were working at the hospital, you said you met your wife.
Right.
How old were you then at that point?
23, 24.
23, 24.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd be 24. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was going to Roane State at the time. Juanita Hembry, who's from right here too, 3 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And then from the time we started dating, we were married a year and a half later.
Okay. All right.
Started a home, started a family together, and coming up on 25 years.
All right. So how did you end up leaving the hospital?
So while she was going to tech, she graduated. Well, she finished at Roane State, transferred to tech. She was in education.
Right.
And there was an opportunity to go from Harriman to a staffing agency, making a lot more money.
Right.
So I ended up going and working for a staffing agency and worked in most of the hospitals in Knoxville, mainly night shifts and weekends for a higher wage.
Oh, okay.
And until she graduated.
So you were kind of like a local travel nurse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But stayed in Knoxville.
Yeah, stayed in
right?
Knoxville.
And that gave us more income. And then as we got married and she graduated, then it gave us, and we got a big bump in pay because she was working then.
Yeah, sure.
So then I was able to come home and I went to work at Michael Dunn Center as their assistant director in nursing.
Oh, okay.
And that got me out of clinical work really for the last time, and started me down a path that was far more administrative.
And how long did you do that?
I was there for about 3 years, which led me into about a 3-year career in pharmaceutical sales,
Okay.
which I loved.
Okay.
But again, that industry was changing rapidly
Oh, yeah.
too. It's nothing like it was then. I caught the tail end of the good old days.
But I mean, you've been an RN.
That's what gave me an in.
Gave you an in, yeah.
Absolutely. I could go in doctors' offices and talk
And
their language.
they would respect you.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I loved that job. That was one of the funnest jobs I've ever had.
Now, did you sell all kinds of things, or was there a particular line of things?
There was 2 or 3 different changes in that 3-year period. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry is unlike many others, and we changed focuses a couple times. It was a company called Organon Pharmaceuticals out of Roseland, New Jersey. It was a part of Axo Nobel, which was a Dutch company.
Right.
That, but then it got sold to Shearing Plow, which got sold to Merck, and my whole division was wiped out. I got out right before they got sold.
Okay.
And went back to Michael Dunn Center to do fundraising and development and PR for about 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Talk a little bit about Michael Dunn Center. I mean, most people that live in Kingston know about Michael Dunn Center. So being PR and development and fundraising, its history. Tell just real quick about what the Michael Dunn Center is, what it's done, kind of how it started.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to talk about that. Michael Dunn was born with Down syndrome to the Lay. C.R. Lay was his grandfather. Harriet's his mother. And they didn't give Harriet very good prognosis at all on Michael's future.
Right.
But that family chose a path for Michael that was just based on love. And they were going to give him the best chance, period, and find out what that was. And
because at that time, their only option was to go to Oak Ridge.
Well, to an institution.
Or to an institution.
Really? To an institution, or just leave them, and not really give them much of a future at all. So
exactly.
they refused that as Michael's future, and that led to starting what became the Michael Dunn Center in the basement of Bethel Presbyterian Church.
Right.
And Mr. Lay just did not let up, and he just kept going, and that led to services for children with developmental disabilities, which eventually led to services for adults with developmental disabilities. So it was founded in 1971, so after 53 years, Michael Dunn Center is an absolute institution here that has cared for more people with disabilities in this area than anybody locally has any idea about.
Sure.
In fact, it's become a company that now serves people across the state of Tennessee. It's about a $25 million a year company to provide all those services, serving hundreds of people with hundreds of employees.
Yeah.
Michael Dunn Center has done more good for people in and around Roane County than probably any other organization that's ever existed.
Sure.
It's an incredible place. And I got a chance to work there in 2 different stints for about 10 years. Some of the greatest people I ever met were served at Michael Dunn Center, friends to this day. I got to go. They had a picnic a couple weeks ago, got a chance to go say hi to some old friends. I learned so much from working with people at Michael Dunn Center.
Right.
Yeah.
the Lays were our next door neighbors.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Grew up next to
Yeah.
Harriet and Robert and CR.
Maryland, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So after that 7 years at the Michael Dunn Center, were you involved in politics at that point yet?
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, while I was, let me get my years straight. My first stint at Michael Dunn Center, I ran for Kingston City Council at 29 years old and won.
Okay.
And then left Michael Dunn Center and went into the pharmaceutical industry at the time.
Yeah.
Ended up coming back to Michael Dunn Center at the tail end of my term with Kingston City Council. While on City Council, I learned as much about service and people in my community as I did in a college education.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You learn so much through public service and by really immersing yourself in how government works to provide services and interact with all the entities that it has to keep your society functioning the way that it should. You learn so much about people.
Yeah. Yesterday I was talking to Sandy McPherson, and I made a comment something about the difference between government and community. And he says, I kind of have a different perspective on that. He says, I think government is organized community. He says it's does the same thing as community does. It's just organized.
I agree with that.
So when you were serving on city council first time, who were some of the council members and the mayor and city manager and things such as that?
Yeah, Diane McKeithen was our mayor when I first came on. Troy Beats was elected mayor in 2005. So I was 2 years with each.
Yeah.
I was on there with Norm Sugarman, Jim Rivers, Glenn Collins, Kevin McClure was on there with me, Jane Rice now. Trying to think of Sarah Humphrey was on there with us.
Oh, okay.
Bobby Bedwell. Had some really good people that I learned a lot from, built some good relationships with.
Right,
Yeah.
right. What was a couple of the main things that you learned, and you mentioned that a while ago, that kind of influenced your perspective on community and the city and things such as that?
You're not going to accomplish anything without learning how to work with people. And that really became such a core principle in any of my management or service from that point forward. It's what marks how I approach every day, is understanding that if it's just me trying to get something done, it's probably not going to be very successful. But if I can get the buy-in and the belief that what we're trying to do together is the right thing to do and will help people in the long run, then we've got a chance to really accomplish something.
Right.
That's what I really began learning during that stint. Now, it's difficult. It's never easy. Getting people to work together is probably the hardest thing I have ever done.
Right.
And it is a constant challenge every single day. But in the end, it's absolutely worth it, and it's really the only thing to make things only way to make things last.
How do you thread the needle between divergent opinions or divergent ways of thinking or divergent vision for a community?
Well, it's constant work. You're never all the way there. When you think you're there and you're all on the same page, a million things can throw it off.
Right.
So I always seek common ground as the basis for relationships.
Right.
And if you can remind each other of your common ground and why you're in this together, then you can, even on things that you disagree about, you can maybe find some common solutions that you can live with. That's governance, really. It's governance we don't get to see often anymore, especially at the federal level.
Yeah.
But at a local level, I see it happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And people are more impacted by what happens at the local level than what happens at the higher level of government.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You're most impacted by what happens in your own community versus what's happening somewhere far away. So that's the way I approach it, is looking for common ground with every single person I work with.
And that's one of the reasons why they say that on the local level, there's really not Republican and Democrat.
Absolutely.
I mean,
we don't have to run on a partisan basis in Roane County, and it's one of the best things about our politics.
Oh, yeah.
In neighboring counties, Loudoun County, for example, they do have to declare. And I've got friends who are Democrats that we may not agree with things at a higher level, but at the local level, we are in lockstep with each other, and that's way more important.
Sure.
So I'm not going to let partisan politics enter that discussion, because if you put an R or a D by somebody's name, a lot of people are just going to turn you off immediately, and it prevents you from being able to accomplish things together.
Right, right. Now, you said your mom and dad both worked at Roane State. Talk a little bit about the impact that Roane State has had on our county, our town.
Yeah. I am such a proud Roane State alum, and let me tell you, so Dad went to work at Roane State when I was 5, and I think Mom worked in a completely different department. She did public relations,
Okay.
mainly. She ended up working in admissions eventually, but worked in public relations early on. And so I grew up there. When I say grew up there, I mean literally. Like, I left school and went to Roane State and hung out until they got off work.
Right.
And if I could get in the gym and shoot ball, I would. If I would just explore. I've been in places in those buildings at Roane State not many other people have been in.
Right.
Under the gym and crawling through ventilation. I'm telling you, I've been in some places there. So it's a part of me. It's a part of my upbringing, not just my first 2 years of college. But then my first 2 years of college did absolutely launch me into a successful career path.
Right.
And so I'm a super proud Roane State alum, and making sure that they remain successful. I mean, it is imperative to Roane County's future that Roane State Community College is successful in Roane County, and trying to get as many of our kids to understand that they have a successful career pathway in so many fields through Roane State that can set them up for success. It worked for me.
Yeah, and it's not just, transfer to a 4-year college. I mean, Roane State offers so many things, specialized training now, that you can get certified and get a certificate and go to work and in high-tech jobs,
Very high-tech.
And I guess that's really good for us, for the county, to be able to produce a workforce that you can say, okay, we're producing this workforce to attract industry.
And Keith, that right there is probably my number one focus in my job right now as county executive. Is trying to trying to recruit companies that can improve our overall economy. That requires a workforce that's ready to feed those jobs, to fuel their ability to accomplish their missions. And we have kids right here who would be perfect for those jobs. So working with our school district and our county commission and all the entities, cities, economic development organizations throughout the region to get our kids in this region, especially in Roane County, with clear pathways into what I believe are the best jobs in the world. That is my highest priority in my job as county executive.
And we've got that. We just had the announcement, of the new company in Oak Ridge. Yeah,
that's right. Arano USA announced an uranium enrichment facility, which we need much more of in the United States for us to secure an energy future for our country. But it is the largest capital investment announced in the history of the state of Tennessee.
Right.
And the tax dollars that will be realized from that project for decades to come really give us some options from a capital perspective that Roane County has never had before.
Yeah.
And so I've been working with school board and county commission to begin thinking that way and doing some planning so that when those tax dollars begin to come in a few years, that we'll be ready to fully take advantage of the opportunity that we have.
Yeah, sure. So you served on city council, and then after city council, what happened?
I had a 4-year term That was tough. I said I
Yeah.
learned a lot. There was actually a recall effort in the middle of that,
Sure.
and which was dismissed by judges because several of those who were involved in the recall effort there was forgery, there was copy and paste. That
Sure.
all of them were thrown out. But that was a hard experience
I'm sure.
for us.
And that's when Troy was mayor.
Yeah, Troy Beats was mayor at the time. So that was all dismissed, but it really gave us a sour taste in our mouth
sure.
for politics. And,
Yeah.
and when I finally made the decision I'm not going to run again, my wife said, "This is the greatest day ever." She
Sure.
was glad for me to get out of it because it's tough being in politics. You take a lot of arrows.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely.
But later, after I had been at Michael Dunn Center a while, the president CEO job at the Roane Alliance opened up as economic development, and I had been really involved in my community. Of course, been involved in politics, and I was approached. This would have been in late 2013 about applying for that job, and I really had never thought about that career pathway at all. But I was passionate for Roane County. And I had been really involved in the community. And a board member approached me and said, "Hey, you might be good for this job. Why don't you apply?"
Right.
And I talked to a few people who said, this may be good for you. And once I decided to commit to it, I went after it. And in February of 2014, they hired me as the president CEO of the Roane Alliance, which was the most intense time of training and preparation for my career of any time.
Really?
Until now, really. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, when you're in a leadership position, you learn pretty quickly, too.
Sure.
But it shaped me from a career perspective and prepared me in ways for the job I'm in now, which I can't think of another situation that would have.
So you were on the inside. I mean, for all of economic industry development, things such as that. That was your job.
That job leads the recruitment efforts for all industrial recruitment for Roane County. And of course, it's Chamber of Commerce, it's tourism.
Yeah,
there's a lot more to it.
Sure.
But the focus is on
industry,
right? And we successfully recruited some projects that eventually didn't even ended up panning out.
Yeah.
But we had some wins. But we established a culture and laid the groundwork, did a lot of infrastructure work, which led us to some of the wins that we've been able to see recently with some good work from people who are working there now. But it was just such a training ground for what I'm doing now. And I transitioned to that pretty quickly because we were talking about politics and me getting out of politics. That's a very political job, extremely political job.
Oh, yeah.
And mainly because that organization is primarily funded by the county commission. And so it was imperative to have good working relationships politically throughout the county. And for the most part, we did until school consolidation became an issue. And then it all kind of fell apart from there.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about school consolidation. We're sitting in a building that's I don't know how many years.
I think it's built. This building is probably built in 63, early 60s.
Yeah, early 60s.
Yeah.
The one next door,
early 50s.
Early 50s. And I know we've been talking about consolidation for at least 30 years.
At least,
if not more. What are your thoughts and what, as the county executive, and I know I got other things I want to ask you about, but since you brought it up, what is your vision for the infrastructure of our schools?
Yeah.
Because the way that I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if the school board wants to build, the money's got to come from somewhere, and it's got to come from the county.
Right.
And I think that has always been a sticking point.
Right.
Is that they butted heads for years on that.
Right.
So tell me your thoughts about
Well,
that.
historically, let's go back to when I was at the Roane Alliance. So the school board at the time had chosen a path that was full consolidation of 5 high schools into one.
Right.
And but what made that model so appealing to the Roane Alliance and the Chamber of Commerce and the Industrial Development Board was that Roane State Community College and TCAT Harriman had pledged, and this was obviously pre-design of the building, to be a physical presence on the campus.
Okay.
And it was a model where every single student in Roane County would have had the opportunity to graduate high school with a TCAT certification, an associate's degree, or at least some college towards that. And that's a model that at the time in the state of Tennessee didn't exist.
Okay.
And we felt like it was going to give our children an absolute leg up on their competition as they graduated high school on whatever career path they were on.
Sure.
So my organization that I work for adopted that K through 14 plan and decided to promote that consolidation effort.
Right.
Which put me at the tip of the spear.
Oh, of course.
In promoting that.
You had a bullseye on your back, didn't you?
And I did. And I did it full speed ahead, as hard as I could, because I believed in what it would have accomplished for our kids.
Yeah.
County Commission eventually didn't feel the same way, and
Yeah.
that led to some efforts, to some votes that ended that push for a consolidated effort. It spoiled some of the relationships that I had on commission. I could kind of see the writing on the wall. I didn't get fired or asked to leave, but I could see some funding challenges coming our way if I stayed.
Sure.
And that led me to I pursued a career opportunity at Oak Ridge National Lab, which was an incredible blessing at the time, which we'll get to in a minute. But that's the history behind how it started for me in the consolidation effort. Spending 4 years away from it. That was 2018 when I left. I ran in 2022. And that 4 years gave me an incredible time to reflect and think about what we did wrong and really a path forward.
Right. So you were elected county executive in 2022.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've been working with County Commission and School Board on this gently, so in sort of a suggestive way of a path forward since I was elected. But my vision for this is not focused on buildings in any way. I in no way pretend to say we need this building here and this building there and combine these two and close this one. I'm not going to get into that whatsoever.
Right.
I'm starting with workforce.
Okay.
We talked about that just a few minutes ago. In Roane County, you have Oak Ridge National Laboratory. It's the largest science and energy laboratory in the world.
Right.
There's almost 7,000 people that work there right now, and the average salary is over $125,000 a year. We have an even larger employer just across the ridge from them, Y12. It's actually in Anderson County. But they employ right now, if you include UPF, about 14,000 people, and the average salary is over $100,000.
Yeah.
And then you have UCOR, who's the cleanup mission on the Oak Ridge Reservation.
And that's going to last forever.
That will last
Probably.
forever.
Yeah.
Exactly. That mission will last forever in cleanup. It's probably close to a couple thousand employees. Again, over $100,000.
Yeah.
Any kind of job you can imagine exists there.
Yeah.
And the wage rate is beyond anything that you can go anywhere else in the country and find in a community.
Yeah.
I want our kids in those jobs.
Right.
Because if our kids are in those jobs, it raises the standard of living for all of us.
Oh, sure it does.
It's more. There's $8 billion coming into the reservation every year in federal money. I want as much of those federal dollars coming our way as possible. To do that, our kids need pathways into those jobs. So design a system, a school system, which creates direct pathways into as many of those jobs as possible. That's my vision. So I'm encouraging the school board to develop a system with the new tax dollars we're going to see coming from Orano. We'll have the ability over the next few decades to rebuild the Roane County school system in a way that puts our kids in the best position for those jobs.
Right.
I don't care what it looks like, but whatever it looks like needs to meet the needs and get our kids on the best pathway.
Right.
To do that, our school board and commission are going to have to work together. They can't work separately on this issue and have any hope of pulling this off. We've seen how that works. It doesn't work. So that's my vision, is focus on what the jobs are going to need and develop a system, plan out the system to meet those jobs. I'm talking about starting at the kindergarten level.
Right.
And it's a really broad vision, but I want to keep it broad until we get some direction on how to get there.
But that's great big picture thinking.
Right.
And
it's where the executives should be.
Yeah.
Not in the weeds on where buildings are going to be built.
Right. Right. Alvin Weinberg, the director of the lab, he coined the phrase "big science."
Yes.
And I mean, that was it. It was big picture.
And the lab still uses that slogan now.
They sure do.
Yeah.
They sure do. But what do you say to the folks? And because these buildings are, the building that I'm in right now, it's
substandard.
It's more than substandard. I had a student sitting in my classroom and a piece of the ceiling fell on their desk. Mm-hmm. And a small piece, but it was a little bit. And I mean, what needs to be done in the meantime before this whole big new system can be put in?
Well, there's still going to have to be investment into ensuring that we have, first of all, safe, secure learning environments.
Yeah. But
a learning environment, I mean, this is a great studio that you all have created here, which is a great example of a learning environment. Mm-hmm. Learning environments make a difference. Mm-hmm. And if our competition, meaning kids that live in neighboring counties, have learning environments that set them up for success better than ours do, then we're creating disadvantages for our kids rather than advantages.
Oh, sure.
So when we think about, when I encourage the school board to plan the system, to plan what the system needs to look like in the decades ahead, you need to be also considering what our neighbors, the learning environments they're creating for their kids.
Yeah.
And are we at advantage or disadvantage based on that? Again, it's all about trying to get our kids into the best jobs possible.
Right.
That's the purpose for education.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that has to be considered, obviously. And it's going to take some short-term investment to ensure that we're at least providing safe and secure environments.
Yeah.
Until we get to a place where we're creating environments that we can absolutely be proud of and are sending our kids straight into those jobs.
Right. Okay.
And when I say sending right into those jobs, sending our kids into pathways that lead to those jobs.
Right.
Sometimes it can be directly in those jobs. Most of the time, almost all the time, it's going to require some post-secondary.
Yeah.
Whether it be university, community college, TCAT, or apprenticeship.
Sure. Yeah. One of those that back when I graduated high school, you could graduate high school and get a good job.
Right.
And that may be the case now, but most of the time it's not. You need some kind of post-secondary training of some sort.
Absolutely.
To be able to get a job that, you make enough to support your family.
Right.
You got to have some skills, and some of that may be military service.
Maybe.
Some kids choose that, and for some kids that's a great thing for them.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I know right now you've got an effort going on that's kind of directly relates to what you just talked about. You talked about it at our assembly at school.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, my effort is cheerleading and encouragement.
Yeah, sure.
It's laying out a vision that I see as a pathway forward.
Yeah.
And I know of no alternate vision or a pathway forward.
Right.
So, but I don't, other than, when it comes time and there's actually a plan presented.
Yeah.
Where I'm providing some projections or how the county can pay for it and doing that. It's really up to the school board and commission to work together to come to create a plan. I think a lot of careful study in what needs to go into that plan needs to happen first.
Yeah.
Careful study of our current situation, of other situations around us.
Yeah.
Careful study of what the workforce needs are now and what they're going to be in the future, and use that information to plan what a new school system is going to look like.
Right.
So my role in that is,
I guess what I was referring to was the state thing, the 70% by 2020.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I.
Absolutely. So that is in conjunction with Tennessee Achieves.
Yeah, there you go.
And again, it is trying to get our kids to understand that a post-secondary pathway is your best option into a career that's going to pay the bills one day and give you the type of quality of life that you're looking for as an adult.
Sure.
And again, in Roane County, we define post-secondary, we define college broadly.
Yeah.
It's not just university or community college or TCAT, it's apprenticeship also.
Yeah.
So any of those four pathways, we're encouraging at least 70% of our kids when they graduate to consider enrolling in one of those pathways and following that pathway to completion.
Right.
And we're already up to 64%. If we hit 70%, then that'll be a record for us. And it'll put us really at the top, highest in one of the highest in the state.
Is that right?
But we want to continue to go past that. It's all about encouraging our kids. Don't stop after high school. Keep going.
Right. All right. So let's go back. We talked about the schools a little bit. What are some of what made you decide to run for county executive?
I didn't until the opportunity presented itself. When Ron Woody, who had served for 12 years, announced that he wasn't going to run.
Okay.
Even then, it didn't come to mind immediately. It was really through a series of conversations that really opened my eyes to the fact that everything I've done in my career has prepared me to serve in this role at this time.
Right.
And when you put it all together and kind of look at where it all points, and with the door opening of there being, not an incumbent running,
sure,
it just was clear at that time. This is it. This is what you're supposed to do. So go. It's kind of like when it was with the Roane Alliance. When I decided to commit to it, I went full speed ahead. It was the same thing with the county executive. When I thought that this was the right career path for me, I committed to it with everything that I had. In fact, ended up living off of savings for about 4 months because I left my job at East Tennessee Children's Hospital at the time. And did
Were you doing
nothing
development
but campaign.
there?
I was director of development at there. So I left that to campaign only, and felt like, honestly feel like it was a tough race. Wayne Best was my opponent, and he was a good friend of mine. We had a meeting later today, and I knew that if I was going to had any chance of winning, I was going to have to give it everything I had.
Sure.
And I did. So it was really an opportunity and preparation kind of meeting at the same time, and following the door that kind of opened.
What are the biggest challenges that you have faced so far, and that you anticipate having to face?
Yeah, we anticipated some financial challenges coming in. There were some headwinds that we had. Coming out of COVID, there was so much uncertainty. What has helped us tremendously overcome those challenges and actually put us in a really good financial position now is the fact that we're growing. For 20 years, Roane County was stagnant in population growth, and there were a lot of factors that went into that. The ash spill being a big one. Yeah. But we are growing now quickly, about 1,000 people a year, which is so since 2020, Roane County's population has increased from about 53,000 to about 57,000.
And is that in any particular location?
It's pretty broadly. There are pockets.
Yeah.
Of course, you're seeing a lot of growth on this side of Oak Ridge. Seeing a lot of growth in Lakefront. In South Roane County, Rockwood, and south of River. You're seeing some new housing developments being announced in around the Kingston area. New housing development in Harriman, potential in Rockwood for some. So you're seeing broad growth. A lot of it's spillover from people who are moving to the Knoxville area and coming here.
Sure.
So that growth has helped us overcome a lot of the financial challenges that we anticipated. So that didn't really pan out to be the challenge that we thought it would. Yeah. We've talked about schools, schools facilities in particular. It's not necessarily Roane County's education that is the problem. It's the facilities in which they're providing education. Yeah. That's a continuing challenge that we'll always have to pay attention to. We thought we were going to have to expand our jail in short order, but working the jail staff, the DA, the local sessions judges, criminal court judges have worked so hard to get our average population of our jail below the threshold, which would require us to expand, that we were just released from a plan of action that was instituted by the state of Tennessee. So we're not required to be on an expansion plan now.
Okay.
So that has provided some relief from a planning perspective.
I'm sure.
So, while we have our constant operational challenges, we always want to improve and be good in customer service and access for our people. Those challenges will always be there, and we'll always be looking to improve. But I think that we're in a really good position now to tackle what's been our biggest challenge, which I think is school facilities, over the next several years.
Yeah, sure.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
And we shouldn't expect it to. But we're in a position now where we can do something about it if everybody will come together and work together to help make it happen.
Right.
That really is our main focus.
What is the relationship like between your office and the Harriman, Kingston, Rockwood governments.
Very good. In fact, I have a mayor's meeting at 11 o'clock today.
Okay.
Mayor Neal's hosting us at City Hall. We do that about once a quarter. Do the same thing with city managers.
Okay.
We don't meet together because they're two very different types of meetings.
Sure.
You know, we have different types of conversations.
Yeah.
Even though they're the same entities. But it is really important to me to have good working relationships with all of our cities. I had a lunch with the city manager of Oak Ridge a couple of days ago. But now, again, relationships take work. You know, it's just like a marriage. You know, you can't just, roll the ball out there and expect to win the ball game. You know, it takes work constantly to maintain relationships. And you don't always agree on things. You got to work through any type of conflict. But if you both stay committed to the relationship, you can get through the other side of anything. And that's what we're doing together with our cities right now. So I'm looking forward to our mayor's meeting today, as a matter of fact.
Well, how far does the city limits of Kingston go out towards Oak Ridge?
They stop at Longville Road. So
Okay.
Longville Road's on the left.
Right.
And if you look at the city limits of Kingston, going down Galahad Road, it's like a key. It's almost everything on the left-hand side of the road, which is the west side.
Yeah.
And it's like a jagged
Okay.
teeth on a key on the right side of the road. Some of it's in the city, some of it's in the county.
Okay.
And then you get to Longville Road, and that's where it stops.
Okay.
And then Oak Ridge city limits come to the preserve.
Right. They come to the.
So you've got a gap in between that's all county.
Yeah, and you got that. Yeah, and the county goes out to West Oak Ridge, doesn't it?
It goes to the river on the right side of the highway, on the east side of the highway.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then as you get to the river on the west side of the highway, that's Oak Ridge because
Yeah.
it's the preserve.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So, what do you see as? And you talked about challenges. You talked about, the things that you're having to face and the relationships. What does it mean to you to be able to serve in the town in which you grew up?
Oh man, yeah, it's my purpose. I think it's what God made me for this season in my life right now. And I don't. If people ask me what's next, I don't have ambition past this.
Right.
And it's because when you truly feel like you're living out your purpose and what you're made for, it's so fulfilling. And it's not easy. It's hard. It's difficult. It's hard work because you're working with people and you see things different ways. You got to work through stuff every single day. People, we get a lot of complaints about the way things are. But when you get up every day and you know that you're doing what you were made to do,
right.
It is just such a fulfillment. And it leads you to commit everything you've got to doing that job the absolute best you can. And I do. I get up every single day thinking about, okay, what are we going to do today to make Roane County a better place and make it a better place for our people to live and work and raise a family and enjoy life, to visit, all of those things which make this just a great place to experience life on earth. That's my purpose. That's why I'm doing what I do. And doing that where I was born, or not where I was born, where I was raised, and where my family was born and raised it's just everything. It's who I am.
Yeah.
It is truly my identity. I couldn't do what I'm doing right now with the passion that I have anywhere else on earth.
Right. Well, I think part of that is the way we were raised, to serve others.
Yeah.
It's to give back to the community, to contribute to the well-being of the community.
Right.
It's not always easy. I tell folks that I've done a lot of things in my career over the years. I said, but the hardest thing I've ever done is teach high school.
Yeah.
I said, somebody's told me the other day, they said, well, at least you enjoy it. And I said, I'm not sure enjoy would be the word I use.
Some days it's not very enjoyable.
I said, I feel like I'm doing something important.
Yeah.
But it's not fun, to be quite honest. It's hard.
It is hard.
So,
but President Kennedy, when he was talking about the space program, said we're not going to do this because it's easy. We're going to do this because it's hard.
Right.
And the good stuff, the meaningful stuff, is hard.
Yeah.
There are lots of days I go home really frustrated and discouraged.
Oh, sure.
Because of the way the day is going, and that's just a part of it. So I don't mean to say getting up and going to work every day is all sunshine and roses. It is tough work.
Sure.
But when you're made to serve and made to serve where you're serving, there's fulfillment even through the obstacles.
Yeah.
Every day has its challenges and disappointments. But at the end, when you can sit back and look at where you were and where you are and how far you've come, then you can sit back and understand why it was so important for you to go through what you've gone through. And we're just getting started in Roane County and doing that. If we can continue to pull together and commit to all the messiness that entails, and chase a common vision together, then the quality of life we're going to be able to provide for people to live right here will far surpass anything that we've ever known of before, and for those who are especially to come, for our kids, for our grandkids.
Sure. It kind of reminds me, a famous writer once said, "I hate to write, but I love to have written." Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Let me ask you one last question. There's and I quote this all the time, especially now that I come to Kingston every day, is I tell people one of my favorite Bible verses is, "A prophet is without honor in his own land."
I have lived that many times.
Have you?
Yes.
Have you? I mean, have there been times that you weren't taken seriously because they knew you as little?
Yesterday.
Really?
The day before that. I mean, it is so common. You can also say familiarity breeds contempt in some ways.
Sure.
That may be a little bit more extreme way of putting that, but when you've grown up together, when you live life together, you lose some objectivity.
Sure.
And when you talk to people outside of here who don't have that same perspective, and you talk about what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and it's just like, well, that makes total sense. Why wouldn't?
Of course.
But it's messy, and the way we're structured in our communities, it's messy because we're people.
Yeah.
And I often feel like, why aren't they listening to me? But it's not about me.
Yeah.
And I have to remember that. It's not about me. It's about us working together to get to a better place.
Sure.
And when I remember that, and remember that it can't be about me just trying to say, let's go, or making people go my way. Yeah. And trying to figure out what other people want, where they think they need to go, what's best for us. And I incorporate that into the vision of where I think what's going to lead us into the best place. Then it helps me to remember to be patient and to be kind and to be gentle, to take an approach that's going to continue to build people up instead of tear anything down. Because when you do that over time, people tend to want to work with you to get to where we can get to together. So that's the approach I try to remind myself to take every day. But sometimes I'm more successful than others. It never stops me from loving what I'm doing and where I am at the time.
And most people want the same thing. It's just they may have a different opinion on how to get there.
Absolutely.
So
that's right.
You have to do that. All right, one last thing I want to ask you. If you're talking to young people today and telling them about the importance of service in their lives, what would you say?
I would say that a life without service is a life unfulfilled, not fully lived. I think we were made for service. I think it is one of the purposes of mankind, and I think it's born in us is a sense of purpose. We're made in God's image, and serving others in their need is just a part of what makes us human and not animal. So my encouragement to any young people is to always remember that. Your life is not about you. Your life is about your place on this earth with everybody else around you, and how you can fit and fill each other's needs as they arise. Because you're going to have those same needs, and you're going to need people to help you at those times. Yeah. So since we're all in this together, find ways to serve that fit you, that you can be passionate about, because your passion is going to lead you to serve in ways that make a huge difference for other people.
All right. Yeah. Well, Wade, thank you so much for coming in and talking to me.
Keith, I really appreciate that. I've enjoyed the interview, and I look forward to seeing all the other interviews too.
Okay, great. Thanks.